Bruce, you must have something really good too.
Of course I do. It's Bruce Danielson, and I guess I'm here to entertain you too.
Want to do it? Second. Moves, Greg seconds. Any changes, additions, deletions to the minutes? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Approved. Next item on the agenda is to take up pending issues brought before the board, and we do have one request for an advisory opinion by Councilor Janet Brekke. And I would ask the clerk to read that request, please. Karen? Janet, we'll call you in just a few moments.
All right. The request was issued by Janet Brekke. The body of the request says, pursuant to Article 3, Charter Amendment of the Sioux Falls City Charter on August 5, 2019, a committee of 15 citizens filed an affidavit and have begun a petition drive proposing amendments to Article 2, City Council of the City Charter. This is a grassroots effort which is all respects legal and provided for in Sioux Falls City Charter. I am in favor of having the proposed amendment brought forward to Sioux Falls citizens for a public vote. The Charter Revision Commission also has the authority to send the proposed amendments to a public vote. I am also appearing before the Charter Revision Commission requesting similar amendments to those appearing in the petition drive. I would like to participate in any and all aspects of the petition drive as I see fit, and am requesting an advisory opinion from the Sioux Falls Ethics Board as to whether there is any provision in the City of Sioux Falls canons of ethics and conflicts of interest in ordinance that would prevent or limit my participation. And it's signed Janet Brekke, August 13, 2019, and she did allow this to be open and not confidential.
Very good. I would ask the city attorney, Mr. Coach, to advise us as to whether or not we have jurisdiction on this matter. And secondly, what questions do we have to address here today in issuing or not issuing an advisory opinion relative to Councilor Brekke's request?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, it is my opinion that the Council of the Board of Ethics has jurisdiction in this matter as applied generally and within the following laws and ordinances of the city. I think the laws that are worthy of particular consideration are actually Charter Section 8.02. The reason I referenced that is because the subject matter, as referenced in the request for the advisory opinion, refers to a charter amendment. The four methods for amending the city charter are laid out in Charter Section 8.02. Further, Chapter 34, the city ordinance, which is the ethics section, generally applies and then specifically applies, in my opinion, in canons 1, 3, 6, and 7. I can get it in a
The record will show that who else has joined us, so we have a full board.
I can reference some specific language there if the chair prefers that. Otherwise, it can be part of the subsequent discussion. Also, City Ordinance 35.054 is one that I believe is worthy of consideration. And then we do have a number of advisory opinions historically, two that tend to rise to the surface, in my opinion, as far as applicability. One is the board's last opinion, deals with the same subject matter as request for advisory opinion number 19-4. And then, as discussed in that case also, is advisory opinion number 07-1, which also references the petitioning and the roles that city councils are appropriately involved in, or not involved in.
Will we ask Councilor Brekke to come forward? Any questions of the city attorney? Okay. Councilor Brekke, would you step forward, please, and we'll swear you in, and we'll give your testimony.
Do solemnly affirm that the evidence you shall give relative to this matter shall do the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, under the penalties of perjury. Yes, I do.
Councilor Brekke, as you know, our last meeting, we dealt with not a related request from Councilor Staley. So I would ask you, in light of the opinion which we have now formally accepted from Councilor Staley's request, maybe you can tell us what further clarification you are seeking from this board, given that we are now on the record with a fresh opinion.
Yes, I would be glad to do that. Just a little background first. I want to give you my personal background, and then the issues that I'm having personally ethically as I proceed forward, and I'm needing advice from the board on, in an effort to again proceed ethically on this matter. One of the pillars of my campaign when I ran for this office was good government, and I conducted what I would call a grassroots campaign, and also I tried to approach friends that I have because of the activities that I have in the business sector of the community. And in that grassroots effort, I heard a lot of commentary and dialogue out in the public, in the general public, from what I would call the common man about concerns about this form of government and the strength of the mayoral position. I just heard a lot of rumblings about that. And so I was cognizant of that as I came into office. There was other issues that I observed when I got into office, and that was in part because of my previous role and my previous experience with city government regarding the structure of government and the role that I played as city attorney in setting up this form of government when it was first introduced to the city of Sioux Falls. And so I did see some things that I thought had gotten out of balance, and maybe some change would be good. And so what I'm needing guidance from is, okay, how do I proceed with that, with my background and knowledge and information, and now as a council member, when I see changes that I believe need to be made, but I serve in a council position, and I'm not able to really do it internally because it's certainly not common having lived through city government during 3 changes of forms of government, 5 mayors. Usually the incumbents don't want change. That's just the way it is. They're there, they got there, they know what they were getting into when they got there, and they want what they got elected to. So I'm not having a lot of luck, convincing the incumbents, both in the mayor's office and my fellow city council members, that anything needs to be changed. But I still have a passion for that and a deep understanding for that. And so the revisions that are coming forth, both to the Charter Revision Commission, and to the petition drive group, were actually authored by Joe Kirby and Dale Froelich, who were the original drafters of the charter. And then I proposed a revision myself. I proposed it both to the Charter Revision Commission, and I actually I offered it to the commission drive group before they began their drive. When I saw that they were carrying Joe and Dale's amendments, I said, would you consider carrying mine as well? And that was a proposal that the city engage in a, through the powers of the city council, that they engage in a citywide strategic planning process, using both offices, the mayor and the city council together. So I want to be very candid about that. I approached the group. I said, would you be interested in mine as well? They were. So basically, you have 2 parallel tracks. But the more I get into it, the more, again, I'm feeling like I need guidance from this committee about how active I can be involved in this process. So, and since I've been here, I will tell you, from my perspective, the politics of city government has changed a lot in the 14 years of my absence. I would say it's a different level of politics that I'm experiencing than I did when I worked here 14 years ago. And so it makes me more even focused on the canons of ethics, the code of ethics, the conflicts of interest ordinance. As I told you when I appeared before you the last time, I'm intimately familiar with them, having actually sat on the international committee that drafted the model voting ordinance that we actually adopted here in Sioux Falls. So that's how I want to guide myself in my conduct. So when I come before you, my request is a little different than Teresa's. I'm not interested in heading up the campaign. I am interested in the petition process, but I'm interested in all aspects of it. I believe, I didn't even ask if I could appear before the Charter Revision Commission with my amendment, because that's been routine practice. Council members have frequently appeared before the Charter Revision Commission. So I didn't even think that that even might be an ethical question. I just took the amendment there and, presented it to them, and also presented testimony in support of Joe Kirby when he, came up and presented it to them. So I made 2 appearances before them. The petition, the grassroots petition group has been filed, as I understand it. It's been accepted. It's, it's in proper order. It's in proper form, and it is.
The petition has not been circulated.
It is being circulated.
It is, but it has not been completed.
It's not completed yet. It's not. So it's in that process. So the official process has started. And as I view it, from my perspective, for someone like me who's interested in seeing some changes, those are the 2 legal, reputable avenues for having that done. If the citizens want to come forward and do something, the Charter Revision Commission. So what I see myself doing is, I see it, as legal and ethical. But I want to know, again, because of my role as city council member, if there are any restrictions on them. And I will cite you to the canons I looked at, when I was, trying to, understand myself what I could do and not do. And I looked at, Canon 4.1, and so this is kind of specifically when I'm getting on specifics with you. Canon 4.1, city council members should actively pursue policy goals they believe to be in the best interest of their constituents within the parameters of orderly decision-making, rules of the city council, and open government. Again, that's part of why I talked about my original campaign. I feel like I'm representing my constituents when I come forth with what I believe are reasonable amendments, that I think will make our government and our city better. And so, I look to that canon for some guidance. The other one that I think is particularly appropriate is Canon 7B. And I would kind of ask to look at A2. I think they go together. City council members should refrain from political activity inappropriate to his or her office. Now that's part of the question. And B, city council members have a civic responsibility to support good government by every available legal and ethical means, to continue to inform and educate the citizenry about the affairs and processes of city government, and to make themselves available to citizens of the city so that they may ascertain and respond to the needs of the community. In doing so, the city council members may join or affiliate with civic organizations that advocate and support principles consistent with the Constitution and the laws of the United States and South Dakota. That's the relevant portion of that. And so that's how I view my conduct. I view myself as, I make, appearances respectfully to the Charter Revision Commission. The citizens group is, as they move to activate the process and, start going out to the public, I would like to, if I want to, if I think it's, in some ways it maybe it's not helpful. It's helpful or not helpful, I may or may not do it, and that's why I framed it up. I want to do it as I see fit, because if it's not helpful to the process, I'm not going to get involved. But if it is helpful, I will get involved. And if I do get involved, it will most likely be, speaking engagements. I may assist in funding or seeking funding on behalf of the organization. I think any and all things that would be associated with it, I would want to avail myself of, again, as long as it's legal and ethical. And again, doing it as I see that it may or may not help the process. As for the petition thing itself, I would be willing to, waive my responsibilities as a supervisor, over the city clerk's office. We have 8 supervisors. I would file something or sign something saying, I will take those duties and responsibilities while I'm engaged in this process. If that, would help the situation, I would like to be able to go out and speak and then have petitions and And, maybe them, have people sign in my presence if they were persuaded, by my efforts when I do the public speaking things. So those are the things that come to mind. I've never been involved in a grassroots movement like that, so I don't know everything there is to know about it. But basically, I think it's, a legal, it's kind of non-traditional, at least in our city, but it's a legal process. It's authorized by our charter. I don't see it being a lot different than a whole lot of other processes, and quite frankly, nothing different at all between it and the Charter Division Commission, because at the end of the day, the decision is made by the public. It's just getting enough signatures or getting the Charter Division Commission to agree that it's worthy of a public vote.
Councilor Brekke, you sat in on the deliberations of this body when we took up Councilor Staley's request for an advisory opinion. Quite familiar with the opinion that we did issue, and that has now been affirmed by this board officially today. Of course, we are not here to consider the merits of charter change or certainly to talk about any change in political environment involving city government. What is it about the advisory opinion we've just issued relative to Councilor Staley's request? What is it about that needs further clarification? Because the only thing we have, in our opinion, we have urged that Councilor Staley not be involved in circulating petitions, but in no other way to please limit her ability to participate. So what further clarification are you looking for from this body?
I guess just to exact that, are there any other restrictions, and primarily in the area of fundraising? Is there any restrictions for me to give funds, or personally, or to contact my constituent base and try to encourage them in the process?
I have a question. Would you
Go ahead.
contact the constituent base?
It'd be my supporters,
Okay.
the people who support me, would they be interested?
And how would you go about doing that?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
To be honest, I mean, those are the questions. I was expecting you to want to pinpoint me, and again, not having been involved in this process, I wanted to be as specific as I could, but those are the things that come to mind.
And we weren't saying there was necessarily any prohibition against Councilor Staley circulating petitions. That wasn't the question before us. It was, what is our advice? Our advice was to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest, to avoid the appearance of impropriety. We advised her that we didn't think it was a good idea for her to circulate the petition.
I guess I'm asking for a little more than that, because I see the role of the ethics board in the advisory opinion process as my insurance company. I don't want to take any chances. I want to know with definitiveness and decisiveness what I can do and what I can't do, because I don't want to come back and then having committed a violation.
So slow down.
Councilor Brekke, I'm troubled by the language in your request that says to participate in any and all aspects of the petition drive as I see fit. To me, first of all, that is absolutely hypothetical. That this board has a long-standing rule against dealing with hypotheticals. So that's the first issue. It looks like a get out of jail free card. I want to do everything unless you tell me I can't. And that's not the role that this board has ever played. I'm not at all comfortable in doing that. Kind of echoing what Chairman Marsh said. We gave Councilor Staley pretty specific instructions regarding one specific activity. So to say to you that you can do whatever you want unless I happen to think of something, I'm not at all willing to go down that road.
It was difficult for me to frame the question because, again, there's this process, and I want to be able to be involved in the process. The process has been started, it's official. I understand your difficulty. I'm trying to define it more for you now, the things that I would anticipate, but also the board, you know, the reason we come for advisory opinions is because you have the authority to rule on anticipated conduct. So I'm trying to tell you what my anticipated conduct would be. And that historically has been the reason for the advisory opinions. Again, they're your insurance policy, so you can go in with confidence knowing that if someone, you know, tries to file an ethics complaint against you, that you have already gotten, you know, permission rather than begging for forgiveness.
Councilor. Mr. Janowski.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I share both the chair and Greg's concern that this is just too broad. I worry that, in your words, the insurance policy could be expanded to things that if they were brought to us in a specific factual backdrop, we would rule differently. So I'm struggling too with trying to come up with any advice or opinions that is not addressing just a what if hypothetical.
Ms. Harris?
Yeah, I have those concerns, but maybe another one as well. And this was similar to some of the questions I asked Councilor Staley last time we met. And that is when you describe your motivation for participating in this activity, you talk about representing your constituents. And so you're framing it up to me as happening in your role as a city council member. And in my mind, I think it's important with some of these activities to be clear, are you representing some official city business or yourself officially as the leader of the city, or are you acting as a private citizen? And so that's, I think, where things get confusing for people and may cause ethical issues. And so I'm just uncomfortable with talking about serving your constituents and representing your constituents as your motivation for the activity. But I would also agree, I think my main concern is it seems very hypothetical.
Councilor Brekke has brought up fundraising. Are we able to address that when that was not in the request for opinion? So we should not be expanding on the request at this point, is that correct?
I would ask the city attorney maybe to address probably specifics in legislation or in the code of conduct for city officials, anything here that provides a prohibition or provides further guidance. Is there any prohibition or any limitation regarding fundraising on behalf of a petition?
Well, I think the question goes right to public notice. And, there's testimony that's taken and facts are developed, but I understand what you're saying.
So your interpretation is that because that was not part of the request, we would need sufficient public notice in order to take up that?
Well, I think,
specific.
I think, and this goes back to some of the other comments, you're taking up the issue as presented, and then and I would direct you to Advisory Opinion 18-2, which was Councilor Staley from 2018, where she asked, for example, her right to circulate a petition, her right to lead a Sioux Falls municipal, so the lead component, right to participate in county school districts, statewide initiatives, referendum petition effort. She lists 6 items that she was looking at the time, and the board at that time found that those were too hypothetical. So that's a relatively short opinion, frankly. And so at that time, those were noticed and discussed, and those were hypothetical. So as the facts are developed, and as far as the board considering, whether this is part of that, I think there is a notice issue now that they're being raised, and there's that specificity that the board would like. I think, there is an issue to consider there. That may be a public notice issue. As you raise them now, it wasn't, you're right, included in that petition.
Mr. Chair, to address Sue's question, that phrase, in any and all aspects of a petition drive, I suppose, could be sufficient to give notice that could include fundraising. I don't know what in any and all aspects entails. I still go back to and I don't want to misstate, Councilor Brekke, what you said in your testimony, but when you talked about fundraising, you asked whether that was prohibited, should you ever decide to do that. And so again, we don't have enough specificity for us to really provide advice in just this broad brush. And Greg, I think in an earlier case like this, we took a very specific position that we can't just paint the wall okay and be done without any facts that we can really dig into.
Historically, when Councilor Staley brought her first request, we declined to opine because it was too broad. And then she brought the second request, which we dealt with a month ago or so. And so I see a great deal of similarity there. And this is just, historically the board has never dealt with hypotheticals. It's certainly not a hypothetical that says anything that I see fit. That's just, it's way too wide for me to be comfortable with. And I would, in fact, I'm going to move that we decline to opine and ask Councilor Brekke to file a, if she so chooses, to file a request with enough specificity that we can actually go on it.
Second to the motion.
I second.
Okay, the floor is open for discussion. Yeah, welcome, the city attorney, welcome to weigh in on this as well. Brekke, you wish to say
If I could,
anything?
just a couple comments. I understand the dilemma I put you in, and I asked it that way because, again, I've never been involved in a petition drive, but I generally know what one is. And so I thought it was specific enough to say, I want to be involved in it, in all of it, you know. I understand the dilemma that puts you in for giving for a broad brush. It would be nice to have a little guidance from the board. However, do I have to come back every step of the way? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do this? You have tried to do that with Teresa Staley. You've said, basically I have my free speech rights. I can do speaking engagements. That's what I was understanding from the dialogue from her. The reason I put in the as see fit is because it might not benefit the campaign for me to get it actively involved. They might not want my money or my friend's money, in which case I wasn't going to get involved in that aspect. So I hope that phrase didn't offend anybody, but that's why I said as I see fit, because I was just trying to wrap my arms around this process is a legitimate process. It's filed, what can I do? The charter revision, it's easier. You go, you testify, and then the entity kind of takes it over from there. There's nothing more that you can do. You can organize people to come in and speak on behalf. I mean, there's those kinds of things. I suppose those would each be, have to be done as individual requests. And then I would say, in the distinction of the different hats I wear, I mean, I had that same confusion as well, again, which is why I'm here for guidance. I mean, I wear a former city attorney hat, a former city employee, a business, former business owner hat, just a plain old citizen hat, and now the city council hat. And I was thinking, which of those hats, would I be wearing, could I be wearing? The reason I'm here is because I would intend to wear my city council hat if I could. But even there, I think I have to ask, because if I don't want to get in trouble for wearing that hat in a place I shouldn't be wearing it.
Further questions and discussion? Any further comment from the city attorney?
I think that, when you look at it from a legal point of view or questions regarding further guidance, a reference to the canons, which of course Councilor Brekke's familiar, they exist, they provide some guidance, not always fact-specific guidance, of course, but that's something that could be part of the board's opinion or motion if they're so inclined. It's inherent that the law applies, so either way, but there is at least, Sioux Falls has the benefit, the city of Sioux Falls, because not all cities do, of having a canon of ethics for councilors and city employees. So.
Thank you. The clerk, please reread the motion.
All right, Greg LaValle motioned to decline to apply and ask Councilor Brekke to file a request with enough specificity to rule on it. And we have a second from Jeff.
One clarification, I think, wasn't advising her to file again, but if she would, she so chooses.
Okay.
All clear on the motion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The record will show that it passed unanimously. We thank you for coming before us, Councilor Brekke, ethical behavior is pretty important.
It is to me.
To this body, to you,
It is to me.
and to
I can
to
get
our community.
significant things
So,
from
thank you.
clients, but I
Thank
would
you.
have liked a little more specific.
Yeah, all right, thank you. Do we need a motion to ask the city attorney to draft anything, or is it just we've declined to apply and
And
therefore?
declining to issue.
Well, I mean, that has been done before. 18-2 was one where I think the entirety of the opinion was a declination to, there's, I think, value for future boards to say you're building a body of what you will and will not, render an opinion on. So certainly the board's call if they want to make that motion, not obligatory. So certainly draft one if the board.
So Ross, you've always been good at doing that motion if you'd be willing to.
I make a motion to authorize the board's legal advisor, Stacy Koister, to draft not an advisory opinion.
Yeah.
It isn't an advisory opinion.
To draft a response.
To draft a response to this request consistent with the discussions and motion of the board.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Passed unanimously. There is another item on the agenda, and Stacey, would you want to address this? Or you want her to address it? But this is looking at section 2.05 of our rules of procedure, the rules of procedure of this board regarding the time frame for us to render advisory opinions. Of either of you.
I can speak to that, I think, Mr. Chair. And this has, I think, been something that's come up before internally with our office, but was something that particularly came up with this last opinion. And it's just ensuring we have enough time to put together a thoughtful written opinion, have it processed through our office to the chair for the chair's review. Because, for example, the last hearing occurred on a Friday. And so under the rules, I mean, there's state law and there's city ordinance on how you count days. And when you have 10 days and it's on a Friday, 4 of your 10 days are weekend days, arguably. So that really leaves us with 6. And so by the time you take the minutes, convert those, it just can be a tight time frame. And we certainly don't want to miss that. And we'll continue to work to abide by that, of course. But I just want the board to be aware that when there's an intended 10, which the net effect of it could be interpreted as 6, which just gets a little tight.
So would you in the office be more comfortable with 10 business days?
You could make it 10 business days, or, state law excludes anything under 11 days in state law excludes weekends and holidays. So you just have 10 working days, basically. So it's just something we thought we'd raise because, it's not, we don't just.
Can you offer some wording for us? And if these are rules of procedure that we set here that do not require any ratification by any other body. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You want to offer language then for how we would change the rules of procedure?
If you could if the motion could just include 10 days excluding weekends and holidays, I think that would certainly suffice.
All right. Someone willing to move that? Anyone willing to move that?
I would make that motion.
Ms. Harris, is there a second?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. All right, we now come to the portion of the meeting available for public input. Is there any public input anyone wishes to offer to this body? Please identify yourselves.
Bruce Danielson. Last month when we were here, on Councilor Staley's request, my right to circulate a Sioux Falls municipal citizen petition to amend the charter was her first question. The second one was my right to lead a Sioux Falls citizen petition to amend the charter. This is actually added to more confusion and probably have more people coming to visit this body. Just as Councilor Brekke was bringing up, trying to get a clarification of the ruling that was made, there's some serious constitutional issues that are involved in that decision that was made last month. And now the confusion that's been added today from asking what you consider maybe a hypothetical question, it still needs more clarity. This body and the city of Sioux Falls can't take away somebody's First Amendment rights to be a citizen. The advisory opinion, it is the board's opinion we advise against activity in question number 1, as it may have the appearance of impropriety, and further this activity may appear to be a conflict of interest in the relationship between the city council and the city clerk. That really doesn't even remotely make sense to this day. And it adds more to the question of what Councilor Brekke was trying to get clarity on. I was surprised that the motion was made and no public input was actually allowed so that the public could even be involved in the question that was just voted on. There's also another problem here, because until I started recording all of these meetings, we have no clue what happened during any of these meetings. We have a very brief summary of the notes that were taken and the votes that were taken, and in 2007, in this body's advisory opinion of number 1, we have no idea what that actually fully entailed. So you're making decisions based on an abbreviated discussion or abbreviated notes, and trying to, as I remember last month, and I can go back to the video, you all were trying to figure out what that opinion actually involved, and you were imposing your current thoughts on something that happened 12 years ago. So I have a problem yet with taking away or calling it an impropriety situation to have Councilor Staley or any council member carry a petition. And I think that is going to be needed to have further discussion. There's several things that have been happening in Sioux Falls city government to stop the current charter petition process. There's some considerations of what will be needing to be done in that process. Yes, we have signatures. Yes, we are still collecting signatures. But we have a problem where we're probably going to need this body to decide some important issues about the legitimacy of some of the opinions that have been expressed in that process. So I want you all thinking about it, because we're thinking about it. And we'll be back to talk to you about the impropriety of council members being involved in things, city officials being involved in things. The way I was just listening to things, I'm now looking at candidates for office, for Sioux Falls City office. It looks like they may not be able to carry petitions. Now I'm looking at, now they're not going to be able to raise funds to run for office. So now we've got out in our community right now secret committees that have promised to raise $100,000 to defeat current candidates that might be up for re-election. This body needs to start answering and start coming up with ways to help structure the questions, because it's going to get very serious here pretty soon with possible changes to Sioux Falls city government. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any further business to come before this body? None expressed. We stand adjourned.
I apologize for being late. I thought getting to the dentist's office at 8 o'clock, I would have plenty of time to finish that and get here by 10.
Because you're one of the first
You got a
patients,
state
right?